Hello everyone, it's Eric here, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing some insights I've picked up and just observations I've made about myself and my hobby, and I think it will apply to many people, especially when it comes to painting. So, I basically noticed that this hobby kind of it kind of stresses me out because I feel like I've been painting for so long that I'm kind of seen by people who see my work as someone who's a really good painter or has a lot of experience painting and won a Golden Demon and won awards and stuff. So I feel almost an internal pressure to kind of live up to my own standards that other people have given me and I've kind of given myself, and almost kind of take pride in being quote unquote a good painter that's proud of what he paints. And I feel like sometimes this causes me anxiety or stress because when I'm painting, sometimes I find that I'm just like overthinking things and trying to make sure every brush stroke is perfect and just being overly careful and cautious and I feel like unless you're painting commission or making money through this or trying to paint for like a display standard or to enter in a contest then I don't think the pressure should be there. And I've been really thinking to myself if I could, be more mindful when I paint and try to really set an intention or a goal for what I'm painting before I paint, so that everything I do can be in service to that goal. So, for instance, if I'm painting just rank and file troops that I want to look good, I want to feel proud of them, but I don't want to really overextend myself or stress myself out painting them. I want it to be just more relaxing, enjoyable, and I don't care if it's not everything isn't perfect or there's some mistakes, as long as just overall it looks good, solid, impressive. Who cares if the boots aren't highlighted or if you look under the robes it looks really basic. Just selectively kind of cutting corners and just not worrying too much about it, because you have your goal to make something that you're proud of but don't want to spend too much time on. So you really want to optimize for, or in this case, I really want to optimize more for efficiency and just having a good experience painting them. And so with that in mind, I noticed the last few times I'm painting, I will really kind of just be mindful of my thoughts when I'm painting and, just every stroke, just not overthinking it and not trying to be less attached to the outcome and just saying to myself, this stroke isn't perfect, but I know that I'm not trying to win a competition or anything, so I'm just going to learn to be okay with an imperfect paint stroke. I'm just trying to not see, the stroke as like a bad thing or a good thing, but just a stroke on the model. And so I feel like in being mindful and trying to stay somewhat detached from the outcome of really trying to paint really well, I feel like I'm just becoming more efficient. The process is just becoming more enjoyable. I'm not overthinking things. I know, there's so much you can learn online about how to be a perfect miniature painter that, this is great and all if you're trying to get better, but, once you're at a level that you're really happy with, then I think it's more about, or at least for me, it's more about, how do I paint efficiently? How do I paint more things in less time? So it's almost like you learn to get good and then you learn to get bad or cut corners strategically. If that makes sense. So I feel like I'm in the phase of my painting journey where I'm not trying to get better by like learning non-metallic metal or blending. I've learned all that stuff, but I feel like I want to just paint faster and more efficiently. So it's like I need to learn how to cut corners and psychologically be okay with doing that if you've kind of been a perfectionist for a while. So like I said before, there's so many tips you can learn and absorb, and it's like there's so many ways you can optimize your painting process. But unfortunately, the downside is that these little optimizations, they kind of add time. And so for me, I don't want to add more time. I just want to save time and be more efficient. So I don't care if I'm doing everything perfectly. So for instance, some people might say, like always make sure you're using clean water to thin your paints, but yeah, I mean, that's true. Technically, that's, you'll have a cleaner paint that won't have any contamination from your water pot. But at the same time, that introduces time to, either change out your water or have a separate form of water on your desk to thin the paint with. So, that adds time. And to be honest, most of the time, if you just put a little paint water to thin your paint, it doesn't really change it very much at all. It's almost really not noticeable at all. So I feel like I'm at a point now where I just need to learn to be okay psychologically with just cutting corners and to be able to paint things faster and not overthinking things. And, at the end of the day, this is supposed to be an enjoyable hobby, but, sometimes I feel like we can put pressure on ourselves to really paint things well because, maybe we want to paint things like the box art, or we want to impress our friends, or, hey, we paid a lot of money for these models and we want to make sure that they look good. And I think it's important to just balance that and realize that this is, for most people, it's just a hobby, and it should be a form of kind of relaxation, and it should be enjoyable. It shouldn't be a source of frustration or stress, although invariably, the process of creating something has the potential for some degree of stress or frustration, I think, but I think we should try to minimize that. So lately I've been more mindful. I feel like it's, I'm faster, more efficient. I'm enjoying the process more, and it's kind of a muscle you build to just learn to be more detached from the outcome of making sure it's like perfect. What you're painting is perfect. I know this may not be everyone's issue, but I feel like for me, I've kind of gone into a habit of trying to be a bit of a perfectionist. So like when something goes wrong, or I paint something that I'm not happy with, I feel very frustrated, and I overthink things, and I think like, well, maybe I should have painted it this way. But I don't know, lately I've been trying to get into like deep breathing and just trying to realize that it's not important. I think it looks good enough, and I could always second guess myself indefinitely to try to make it look better. So sometimes there's a saying that it's like good enough is perfect. So if it's good enough, if it's met your goals, your underlying goals of like painting something for tabletop standard, for instance, then just learning to be content with that. And because I feel like for me, there's still a part of me that wants to paint everything to my highest standard. And I've been learning to cut corners and paint things more efficiently or simply. And I think it's really helping. And, you'll get more done. And at the end of the day, as long as it's generally good, you're not going to notice that you cut corners or uncertain areas, or you didn't paint the backs of shields, or you didn't highlight the boots, or you got a little sloppy in some places. When the unit's all together on the tabletop, who's going to notice that? And also, I think it's important to strategically plan where you're going to put more effort. So for me, I'm thinking I'm going to put more effort onto faces, onto eyes, onto shields, onto weapons, hands, and then on other areas, if something isn't quite perfect, like a highlight isn't perfect, or the opacity isn't perfect, or a little sloppiness, or a decal isn't perfect, or there's some silvering, whatever. As long as I just remember my goal, then it's all good. It's all good. So I don't know if this is everyone's problems, or even most people have this problem, but I feel like there's probably some people out there that they're kind of perfectionist, and it can cause a little stress to be a perfectionist and always trying to make sure you're painting everything to the best of your ability. And I'm here to say that consider, thinking about, why you're painting what you're painting, like what your goals are. Is this for display? Is this for tabletop? And think about how to best strategically kind of prioritize your effort. So, for instance, if you can only paint one thing really well on a given model, what would it be? Is it a weapon, or is it the face? Is it the base? So with these things in mind, I think it's possible to really have an enjoyable painting experience, paint a model you're really proud of, and save a lot of time and not spend too much time doing it by really being efficient and mindful, and really being thoughtful about where you place your effort. And I feel like this talk may be more for like advanced painters, but I think it can also be for people of any skill. So just this is just largely an encouragement to be mindful of your thoughts and your feelings when you're painting, and just always remember that this is a hobby. It's meant to be enjoyable and relaxing, and if it's not, then maybe consider why that may be. Perhaps I know it's easy to get really attached to painting something well and making something you're proud of, and yeah, after all, we spend a lot of money on these and we want them to look good, but at the same time, these are models. These are there for our creative expression. Doesn't have to be a source of stress, and it probably shouldn't be for most people. And another thing I think it's interesting about this community is that we're very attached to this hobby. We get very passionate about this hobby, and rightfully so. It's a creative expression. We're mentally, emotionally invested in it. It fulfills a creative itch in all of us, and there's many facets that are very enjoyable. There's the social aspect, which is huge. Community and good social interactions is a core human need. There's the creative aspect, which is also good. It's relaxing, it's fun, and it also scratches an itch. And then there's the lore, and then there's the rules, and there's mental stimulation, and it's a great hobby. But I feel like people can develop certain convictions, which they have a tendency to share with others, especially like when it comes to painting and modeling. I notice some of these convictions, they're well intentioned. It's meant to, make a better model or do something. But I feel like, when we hold on to a lot of these convictions without questioning them, it can needlessly cause stress or just needlessly cause, more time or add more time onto the painting process without really being mindful of, their original purpose and or your goals. So for instance, some people might have the conviction that you need to wash every model before you prime it. Otherwise, the primer won't stick. So for instance, if you have a plastic model kit, you need to wash it with dish soap and a toothbrush before you prime it. Otherwise, there's going to be all kinds of mold release or fingerprints on it, and that's going to stop paint from sticking to it. And for some people, it's like they'll do that every single time. And or their conviction might be, you have to prime everything with primer, and it has to be like aerosol primer, and airbrush primer is not as good. But or it might be that conviction might be that you always have to thin your paints a certain amount, or you always have to varnish, or no, you shouldn't varnish. So in trying to learn how to be a better painter, we can kind of pick up on these convictions and think they're really important. But at the end of the day, none of this is truly important in the grand scheme of our lives. But within the context of the hobby, it's meant to do something that is deemed important. But also bear in mind that there's often not a one-size-fits-all solution, and there's context that matters. So for instance, you may not always need to prime everything before you paint it, and you may not always want or need to varnish everything before you paint it or after you paint it, and you may not want or need to wash models, plastic, metal, or resin before you paint them. Now, some people say that you should wash resin and metal models, and that's different than plastic, and this and that. But I mean, it's also funny related to this topic that there's a lot of chemistry and science involved in this hobby, like paints and glues and solvents, aerosols and airbrushes and putties and liquids and palettes. So there's a lot of material and chemical sciences happening, and I feel like 99% of people in this hobby don't fully understand how, chemically, scientifically, at a deep level, how glue works, how paint works, how, say, varnish works, how primer works. We don't know very scientifically how these things really function. We just kind of go off of like, well, Duncan Rhodes said this, so you have to do that. Duncan Rhodes said to prime your model, so you have to prime your model. Duncan Rhodes said that you have to apply in too thin coats, so that's the way you do it, because Duncan said he's the guru. And I think it's good to learn from people with a lot of experience, but at the same time, always, be willing to kind of question the wisdom and really think about how it relates to your own hobby. Apply a critical eye. So when Duncan Rhodes says that it's good to apply paint in too thin coats, that's generally true, and that's especially true for Citadel paints, because they're naturally a bit thicker, in my opinion. But for other paints, they're thinner, and if you put them on a wet palette, by thinning them too much, it really dilutes them a lot. So I guess my point in saying this is that I think I'm just trying to be more mindful in how and why I'm painting, to really optimize my enjoyment of the hobby and to be more efficient and save time and just really get clear on my goals and my intentions, and not just kind of, for instance, just paint everything to the best of my abilities, even when, no one's going to notice. Let's say I paint a shoe on any given random model that's just a rank and file guy in the third rank. Let's say I spend an hour painting a shoe or a boot, and then I forget about it, no one notices it. That's not a good use of time. So if we can just really get clear on our intentions and goals, and I think it can create a better experience for everyone. And I noticed it's really been helping me. And I guess the closing note is that, try not to get too attached to the hobby, to your painting, and just try to be mindful of how you feel while you're painting. If it ever becomes stressful, maybe it's time to take a break or just reassess your goals and really think about some things. And I know it's for me too sometimes. When I get too attached to this hobby, usually it's because there's some other issue in my life. So I find that when I work on those issues, then I'm more relaxed during the hobby, and I'm able to keep it more in perspective. And I feel like I see a lot in this hobby. People get very, like I said before, very attached, not just for painting, but also for gaming and this and that. And some people will cheat or this or that. I hear stories. And I feel like for people I feel like these are all symptoms of just being too attached to the hobby. And I think the hobby is great, but at the same time, if one were to feel motivated to cheat or to, you know, really stress out about painting or really get frustrated with GW, then, you know, maybe it's time to ask some questions of ourselves and gain some perspective. And I know sometimes, you know, we kind of get, this is our thing, and, you know, we get attached, and that's a good thing and a bad thing, but I think we just need to find a balance, and I feel like that's what I've been working on, and it's really been helping me in my mental health recently. So I really hope this message can be helpful to you guys. If you guys have anything to add or any questions or comments, please respectfully leave a comment below in the comment section. I really appreciate you spending your time listening to me, and would love to make some more videos and hopefully give you guys some great value, some great tips. I wish you all the best in your painting and enjoyment of the hobby. Take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.